Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. Welcome at this Innovation Summit hosted by VOCA Chamber of Commerce and Industry West-Vlaanderen and POM West-Vlaanderen, empowered by the European Interact authorities. You're joining us from the UK, from France, from the Netherlands, and of course from East and West Flanders and other parts of Belgium. We would like to have you all here in person, but for reasons we no longer need to explain, I think this was not possible. On the other hand, a crisis always provides opportunities, and this situation gave us the opportunity to design an event that is truly innovative in itself. So this is the first digital innovation conference organized by the project partners, and thank you all for joining in. In the next 2 hours, we want to present to you 6 innovation pitches from 6 large multinational companies. And by doing that, we hope to be able to inspire all of you on how to innovate in your company and in your business. We're going to kick off the event with an introduction from Valérie Meuser, Director Member Services at VOCA Chamber of Commerce Industry West-Vlaanderen, and Lieventak, CEO of POM, the Provincial Development Agency for West-Vlaanderen.
Good afternoon, all participants from France, the UK, the Netherlands, East Flanders and West Flanders. My name is Valérie Meuser. I'm Director Member Services at VOCA Chamber of Commerce and Industry, West-Vlaanderen.
And I am Lieventak. I'm the Managing Director of the Provincial Development Agency West-Vlaanderen. We're really honored and pleased that we can provide to you today a short introduction to this first Digital Innovation Summit here in West-Vlaanderen. Organizing this event here is really symbolic. The province of West-Vlaanderen is characterized by a unique ecosystem of bright SMEs and world-known and stock-listed multinationals. We dispose of important industrial sectors, including machinery, foods and drinks, and textiles. Besides that, mobility is a second important aspect. This is why our region has, next to a dense network of roads and waterways, 2 important international seaports which serve as logistical gateways to the rest of the world. And we also have 2 international airports, serving on an annual basis several thousands of passengers and cargo transports.
Today you will witness a number of inspiring innovation pitches presented by renowned global companies. First of all, we want to thank all of the representatives from the companies for their involvement and for being here with us today to share their stories and insights into their innovation processes, both internally and externally. For the participants, we want to convey a short but important message. Innovation has become key in business continuation models. Multiple examples in the past prove that neglecting innovation will irreversibly disrupt your business sooner or later. The business landscape, with integration of new digital tools and unpredicted external crises such as COVID, continues to change at a rapid pace, dismantling and disrupting the way we do business today. As company leaders, you need to be agile and fast to react to all these challenges. Luckily, you're not alone. We are here to help you. At VOCA West-Vlaanderen, one of the 4 strategic pillars is being ahead of the curve. We welcome all regional companies to support them in identifying new key trends and assisting them in being frontrunners in entrepreneurship, even during these challenging times. Our teams are here for you to provide necessary support tailored to the specific needs of companies.
Current circumstances and fast evolving society forces us more and more to focus on digitalization. This digitalization is very important for our SMEs. For instance, a digital transformation plan helps them to enhance and improve their resilience and to reduce their vulnerability in the longer term. With POM West-Vlaanderen, we support our companies by offering them a full package of assistance, and this includes scans, audits, webinars and workshops. But not only companies are obliged to focus on the digital world, also our employees need to improve their digital skills. And in this respect, we bring directly together our knowledge institutions with our SMEs, and together they invest in the best suitable research infrastructures. This allows them to work together and to collaborate in a durable way. A couple of years ago, an important study analyzed what leadership competences that CEOs of big companies found essential in today's business world. The result of the report is that creativity and a strong ability to change are ranking highest. Existing concepts and vested interests are under a continuous pressure to adapt to a new reality, but unfortunately, we cannot predict the future, and therefore we must listen to the world and collaborate with each other.
This is why today we bring you a selection of innovation cases presented by 6 innovation champions to inspire you, to help you gain a better understanding of the innovation processes brought forward, and furthermore, translating the innovation cases on your company level. We also invited 3 brilliant innovation experts who will provide the academic context of the cases. So take a seat, get inspired, and let your creative mind flow. Enjoy.
A big thank you to Valerie Meuser and Lief en Tak for their words of welcome. Now, the Innovation Summit is an organization within the Innovative Sector Exchange Project, or in short, ISE. ISE is partly funded by the European Interact 2 Cs program. Many of you have already heard about the project or have even participated in one of the many events and activities the project partners have organized. But just in case you need some freshening up, or if you're new to the project, we have prepared a short introduction video presented by Tudor Price. Tudor Price is Deputy Chief Executive at the Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce, one of the partners in the project.
Hello, my name is Tudor Price, and I'm the Deputy Chief Exec here at the Kent Invicta Chamber of Commerce. We're one of the partners in the Innovative Sector Exchange Programme, also known as ICE. The ICE project operates in the North Seas region and covers 4 key areas. These are the southwest Netherlands, east and west Flanders, the Noord part of Calais, and Kent. There are several partners involved. Aditech looks after France, POM and VOCA look after East and West Flanders, Innovatiehuis look after the southwest Netherlands, and Kent County Council and ourselves, the Chamber, look after Kent. We recruited businesses from 4 key sectors. These are agri-food, digital creative, new materials, and mechatronica. The activities that we've been undertaking over the last 2 years has been to try and help businesses to identify and innovate products within their business that will enable them to trade internationally. Not only have we been working with them on their products and services, but we've also been trying to encourage them to collaborate and work and form clusters, which will help them to continue to develop long beyond this program and supported them. Some of the activities that we've undertaken so far have involved one-to-one sessions with businesses, introduction of experts and advisors that can give them advice on products and services they have, workshops, visits to exhibitions, as well as helping 1 or 2 businesses exhibit at exhibitions themselves to test their markets in the new product. We are now in the latter stage of this program, which will be about forming the networks that will live long beyond the life of this program. We have already established the sectors, which are digital creative, agri-food, new materials, and mechatronica. And we're continually looking for new businesses that can join these clusters to try and help develop and collaborate and build on the strengths the program has already delivered. We're so glad you could join us here today, and we really hope you enjoy the session.
Now, after the introductions, we are ready to really dive into the core of this Innovation Summit. We have 6 inspirational pitches on different innovation processes brought to us by innovation leaders from top-class companies that are doing businesses worldwide. And during each of the pitches, you can ask questions to the speakers. Please use the chat window to forward your remarks or questions for the speakers, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. Please also mention your name and your company. Also listening in are 3 academic experts who will place each innovation pitch into a wider context. They will look at the innovation projects from their point of view, and they will add their expertise to it. So let's introduce our 3 experts. So Ann Kooshaert is Executive Officer at Inquirendi and is a specialist in innovation and R&D management, IP strategy, and in rethinking business models. Ann, what kind of companies do you actually work for, and what kind of work do you do for them? Could you explain that a little bit to us?
Of course I can. Inquirendi stands for On a Discovery to Inquire. And in Inquirendi we work on 3 axes. One is innovation, where we help companies to introduce innovation methodologies, to structurize their innovation and R&D projects. We help them with their R&D planning, their R&D cost savings, cost cutting, cost optimization. And of course, if funding is applicable, we will help them with applying for funding. The other part is transformation, where we live in an age where everything is rapidly changing, disruptive technologies entering the market, business models are changing, so companies need help for that. And that's why we come in and help them rethink, change from this incremental to disruptive innovation. And last but not least, intellectual property strategy. We make the language of IP understandable for SMEs, we make it valuable, and we help them to translate their innovation into scalable ideas that sell better for business and help them with an underlined IP strategy. That's why we developed a lean patent canvas to make ideas 10 times or more worth, and on top of that, a bonus plan with an IP strategy plan with patents and trade secrets.
Okay. Very interesting. We're looking forward to your
Thank you.
input later on.
Thank you very much.
Wim van Kamp is General Manager Technology Transfer at the Ghent University, big university in Belgium. Wim, could you explain some more what exactly it is you do?
To say it very in a few words, actually we take academic research outside of the university. So universities perform research, we develop new technologies, but we don't make products. So in order to transform technologies into products, we need to establish partnerships. And myself, together with a team of more than 50 people, we establish such partnerships with industry. Second part of my job is to contribute to creating a local innovation ecosystem. And we do that firstly by creating new companies. Secondly, by managing incubators for startup companies. And thirdly, also by running science parks where we host R&D intensive companies. Mm-hmm. So that's in a nutshell what I'm doing.
Okay, thank you. Welcome also to Professor Peter Osseel, Managing Director at MCR, a spin-off of the Leuven University, and he's also visiting professor there. And Peter is a strategy, leadership, culture, and learning coach at the University Hospital in Brussels. And he's an expert in behavioral change, strategy implementation, cultural transformation, digital transformation, and leadership and learning. A mouthful. Peter, I wanted to ask you, you were a member of the COVID-19 crisis cell at the intensive care unit of the University Hospital in Brussels during the first COVID wave in March and April. Looking at the high numbers of impacted people now in Belgium, but also in the neighboring countries in the second wave, and with your expertise on behavioral change, we seem not to have learned a lot from the first wave.
Well, Wim, thank you very much for your question. I think we do have learned a lot based on the first wave, but indeed it comes down to us. It comes down to our behavior. If you want to reduce the high numbers of infections in Belgium or anywhere else in Europe, I think we have to look at ourselves and work on our behavior. Now, that is one of the biggest challenges because a change in behavior is very difficult because it hurts. If you don't feel the mental mental or physical pain, you're not changing actually your behavior. Now, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. People don't want to hurt themselves. So that's not something that comes easily to us. But I think if we work on our own behavior, I think we can reduce the number of infections quite fast.
And hopefully we won't have a third wave then.
Well, I think we will have learned a lot by then to do it perfectly well in the third wave, or even to avoid a third wave.
Okay, thank you very much, Peter. We'll
welcome.
be hearing more from you later on. So you'll be watching very closely the 6 pitches, and we will be happy to hear your comments and views on what the innovation leaders of today have to say. The first innovation pitch will be presented to us by Wim van der Stricht, Chief Technology Officer at ArcelorMittal. And ArcelorMittal is the world's biggest producer of steel. Today, this huge international company is facing an important challenge, making a transition towards a carbon-neutral steel producer. Technological innovation and the development of circular production models play a key role in the transition, and the company has developed a breakthrough climate strategy to face this important challenge. Here's their story.
Today, ArcelorMittal faces an important challenge in its road to carbon neutrality in 2050. We all know steel production is responsible for 7% of global CO2 emissions. On the other hand, we cannot imagine a world without steel. Steel is used in cars, in buildings. Steel is used everywhere. Even in our transition to sustainable energy, we cannot imagine not to use steel, because steel is used in wind turbines, steel is used in solar panels. So the use of steel is really everywhere. So how do we solve this issue? Because when you produce steel, you need, in the current environment, still carbon. So carbon is inevitable to produce on a large scale economically steel. So we have to find ways to produce steel without CO2 emissions in the environment. Over the last years, steel production has already done quite significant efforts to reduce its emissions. Gradually, the production of steel has increased with the same level of emissions. So if you compare our emissions to 1990, we have already in 2018 reduced our emissions with 23%. But this gradual reduction of emissions is not sufficient. We have to make a big leap. We have to make a large transition to reach our target of carbon neutrality in 2050. So how did we approach this issue? Well, we had an approach of open innovation. We had to look for new technologies which are not in our core business, which are not steel making, but we had to look across the border to other companies, to other technologies to solve our issue. So we explored quite a diverse range of technologies in the chemical industry, the biotechnology, waste industry, to help us to solve this problem together. And meaning together is also that you have to collaborate with other companies from other sectors, with academics, to solve the problem. What also was required in our process is to talk to stakeholders, to policymakers, because when you do innovation, when you introduce new technologies, new products, typically legislation lags behind innovation. And then you have to discuss, you have to talk to the policymakers on how to solve this issue together, because legislation should not limit your creativity and your innovative process. Finally, we have to be open about this. Doing research, doing innovation will cost money, a lot of money. Even for steel production, you need large installations, so you need a lot of investments. So we also had to look for novel ways of financing our innovative projects. So we had to look for support from European instances, from national instances, to help us in our road to these innovative processes. So what in the end did we do? We explored a lot of different technologies. We collaborated with a number of universities, with other companies, to explore these technologies. from a lab scale to a small pilot scale and in the end to a larger demonstration scale. And these were quite diverse. We did a lot of projects in the last number of years to explore what all are the possibilities to work on this reduction of CO2 emissions or to improve our circularity in our process. Some of them were successful, some of them less. So we in the end had to select the most promising technologies, not only on technological feasibility, but also on their economic viability, because in the end you want to have a technology that on the long term is sustainable economically as well. And on the other hand, we also had to look at what is the social impact of these technologies, of these projects, because you have to look what will be the impact on our neighbors, on our production. Will this also be acceptable on the long term? Will it be sustainable? So we had to look at different elements, not only technologically, to see which of these technologies on the long term will be sustainable. We selected a number of them, which we called the key enabling technologies, and we built our strategy, our roadmap to carbon neutrality around these different building blocks. And with all of these building blocks, we then started to develop pilot projects, demonstration projects, to in the end check in reality what is the viability of these technologies. In some of our plants in Europe, we have already launched these projects a number of years ago, so that they're already quite advanced and already quite large scale just before demonstration. And two of these projects are in fact situated in the plant here in Ghent. We have the Carbalist project, or also known as Steenenol project, where we want to produce in an innovative way a chemical, ethanol, from waste gases from our production process. And this is a typical example of issues that you can face in this kind of technologies. We produce a novel type of product in a novel way, and the legislation at that stage was not yet adapted to this new product, because we wanted to produce a renewable biofuel from our waste gases, and this was not yet known in the current legislation on biofuels. So we had to talk to the policymakers, to the European Commission, on how to solve this and how to adapt the legislation or how to adapt our process to the existing legislation. So we had to be very creative, and in the end we developed a sister project of the Steenenol project, where we wanted to introduce biogenic carbon originating from waste wood into our process, so that our ethanol product in the end will be accepted in the current legislation for biofuels. So it, in the end, developed a second technology, a new technology, where again we had to talk to the waste sector, the waste handling sector, which is also again out of our comfort zone. We had to learn a lot. We had to collaborate with the waste sector to try to develop together a way to use the waste product, waste wood, to shape it so that we can use it in our process. So again, a new type of collaboration. We learned now a lot about waste, and that again triggered a number of new projects, smaller projects again, to see how we can use various different types of waste in our process, so that we can become a very circular way of producing steel and ethanol. These are typical examples of how you can solve your environmental challenges by using novel technologies on the one hand, but also by collaborating with other companies and also collaborating with stakeholders to commonly solve the hurdles that you can find along the road, to come in the end to the common desired solution, being the production of carbon neutral steel and other products. We should also not underestimate the impact of SMEs in this whole process, because we are collaborating a lot with SMEs, and I would also encourage SMEs to participate in this open innovation model, because a lot of the times the innovative motor of the whole process is an SME. They have sometimes the ideas, and they can collaborate with larger companies like ArcelorMittal to develop then commonly a new process, new products. So for an SME, I think it's also critical that they are aware of this possibility to step in this open innovative process.
the ArcelorMittal case, and Wim van der Stricht is right here with us. Welcome. Evolving towards the production of carbon-neutral steel is this case. Let's hear from the experts. First, Wim van Kamp, maybe, what's your view on this huge challenge ArcelorMittal is facing?
I think it's a very interesting case of innovation. What was shown in the movie is that actually you have two steps. One is showing technical feasibility. And that's typically what we're good at in Europe. We have a very good environment for R&D activities. We have good universities, good institutes, good SMEs. So I think that part is quite clear. Actually, when you want to combat carbon emissions, what is very important is then the next step is the upscaling and the economic viability of the upscaling process. What is your product going to look like, and is it economically viable? And I think that's a very interesting case, is how do you select technologies, how do you decide which ones might be economically viable, and where do you do those upscaling projects? And that's actually also a question I had for Wim, is Arcelor is a global company. How did you decide where you would do, where to do the upscaling projects in Ghent or in other places? And is, in your opinion, Europe as good for upscaling projects as for typical R&D projects?
It's a very good question. Indeed, the selection of plants, it was a process we went through. Europe, as you say, is a very good environment to do R&D because we have a very good technological expertise to develop such projects. So our focus was first on Europe because of the expertise we have in the plants, but also because we are talking about CO2. And in Europe, we have, of course, the CO2 emissions cost. So there, the pressure is the highest to realize the first projects to reduce our emissions. And then we looked indeed at different plants we have in Europe and selected the ones we thought had the best ecosystem to develop the new technologies. Because, as I indicated in the pitch, we will not solve the issue by ourselves. We have to collaborate with other companies. So we looked next to our steel plant, do we have a chemical plant there? Do we have a good infrastructure? Do we have waste companies in the neighborhood? And then selected the plants which had the best ecosystem as well to develop, let's say, a large-scale demonstration project.
Okay. Let me remind you that you can ask questions to the speakers using the chat window. Please do. But first, I want to go to Anne, maybe for your thoughts on this.
I think it's a topic of sustainability, which is a responsibility for any company, any person living in this world. And
but for some companies, it's harder than for others, of course. Huh?
Yes, clear it is, but it starts from the beginning in innovation. The first step you make in a new product or a new process, we have now the responsibility to start thinking about the sustainability effects of that product process. We're now busy with innovation to solve the problems we caused with sustainability in the earlier years. It's our responsibility in innovation to start thinking from the start, when you start from scratch, to avoid sustainable problems. That's why we have these methodologies like SDGs that come into place. We need to think about what if we design a product and it becomes highly wanted and it's an abundance, what will be the effect on the planet? And that's a responsibility we have. In the past, I think we didn't do that exercise enough, and it's a new process, it's a new way of thinking. That's why this systemic thinking is coming into place in companies, that you need to see the whole perspective of what you're doing and how it is related, and that's why these ecosystems also are becoming so important. We need to understand who is living nearby us, who we can collaborate. Maybe we produce waste that can be used by others in our neighborhood, that can upscale. And it's an exercise we all have to make, because it's our responsibility that not only for us, but for our children and grandchildren and so on, that we can have a thriving future. Mm-hmm. And that we do not need to escape to Mars like some tell. Yeah. That's the goal.
Right. We have one question coming in from the audience for Wim van der Stricht. Do you find that investing in innovation to make your products more sustainable gives you a competitive advantage? Are customers more likely to buy from you because of your efforts to reduce your CO2?
Yes, I definitely think so, because already now we receive questions from customers to buy sustainable steel. So they want to, in their products, also use steel that is greener, sustainable, so that their products in the end will also become more greener and sustainable. An issue we have now is that there is not really a standard, currently a widely accepted standard for what is now green steel. So the steel sector is working on this, ArcelorMittal as well. We are joining different initiatives to determine now what is sustainable steel. In the end, we estimate also, if you want to make steel more sustainable, the end customer will not really feel that in his pocket as well. We have done some studies on that. For example, on a regular mid-sized passenger car, if you would have to make sustainable steel, it will only maybe be 100 euros on a complete car. So in the end, the customer will not really feel that to buy sustainable steel.
Okay, here's another question for you. Were all of your efforts to innovate driven by demand from customers, or did they come from within the company, or was it a combination of both?
I would say it's a combination of both. I think the company has been working for years, as explained also in the pitch, to gradually decrease our emissions, but we felt the last years that we have to make this larger transition. And by showing this to the world and also the customers, we also feel that now more and more the customers are also demanding more and more to go to this sustainable steel. So it's a combination of the two, I would say, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Wim van der Stricht. Let's head on to the next case. The second case is presented to us by Céline Lamidel de la Sus. She is a product manager for waterproof materials at Decathlon. And I guess we all know Decathlon as a large retail chain for sports necessities and sports clothing. Defining a user-centric approach and, on the other hand, highlighting needs before choosing a solution is what defines innovation successes at Decathlon. And this particular approach has indeed proven to be very successful for this company. For instance, in the production of its 2-second tent or the Easy Breath scuba mask. So let's find out some more about the innovation strategy at the Decathlon.
As you know, Decathlon is a big company about sports products. They employed about 50,000 people all over the world, and they also made their own product. So I'm here to talk about innovation. Innovation is a usual word in Decathlon company. We love innovation. We talk about innovation every day. We have a lot of questions about innovation. What is innovation, in fact? Is only a question of disruption? Is it continuous improvement? Or sometimes is it only new products? We have a lot of iconic products, and I'm sure that the product himself just talk the better about innovation. You know, 2-second tent, you know, Easy Breath mask. But I'm not going to talk about this product today. My challenge 6 years ago was to help people to think about user-centric approach. We are in a process today with engineers, and we are thinking about materials with technical characterization. The idea was to help them to think what is going to talk to the customer directly and to the users. When I said air permeability, which is a characterization on the component, in fact, customers and users don't know what is air permeability. But when I say this jacket is windproof, it's okay, it's really clear for them. So I asked the engineer to take this kind of language to be sure that what they are going to do will talk to the customers and to the users. Another example of this user-centric approach is, for example, when you take a polar fleece, we are going to characterize the thermal insulation on the polar fleece. But at the end, what we are going to communicate to the customer or to the user is the warmness of the polar fleece. So I asked the engineer to talk about the warmness of the materials they were developing. I asked in the same time to the sport teams, where there is also engineer, to come and ask us something that is more next to the needs of the user or of the customers. For example, they used to come and ask us, could you give me a polar fleece that is sometimes 140 grams, fabricated, made in other countries with this kind of cost? And when you ask this kind of sentence, you are sure that people are going to give you a solution. What I would like to know is what is your needs. So today, when sport people teams come to us, they ask us, please, could you help me because I need something that protects me from the cold for occasionally sports and with middle activity. When they tell me this sentence, it helps me to understand that they need warm, they need moisture management, and also they need optimum durability. So we are not talking about product benefits, not only about process that help us to make these product benefits. It helps us also to have a big collaboration between marketing, design, and engineering. This collaboration helps us to be more customer-centric. Organization has also evolved in this way. For example, the team that was called before knit is now called protect from the cold. It's a need. And the team, for example, who was called before woven is now called protect from the rain team. So we move from solution to needs. We move from process to promise. We just think about the why before the what. So the dialogue is more about the needs than the solution we already know. We need to focus and observe people to understand the needs that sometimes they're not expressed. And we need also to observe the world that is really evolving quickly. Innovation is a story of involvement. Yesterday we were talking about process and user-centric, and after we talk about customer-centric. But soon we are going to listening more and more to citizens. We need to be more human-centric. And then we could observe people, understand deeply what humans are, and just going to innovate, to be aligned with our own values, and deeply innovate from people. So innovation has now a new playground for our teams, the sustainability challenge. When we qualify our materials about the product benefits, as I said before, for example, warmth, it will be not enough. We need also to be warm and good for the planet. So it will be new benefits to make new materials better for environment. So I was talking about industrial part of innovation in Decathlon, which is upstream in the value chain of Decathlon. And we are here in a store which is downstream in the value chain of Decathlon. But you are here in a new concept store for Decathlon, and I think it will be the next innovation story.
Céline Lamy-Delassus from Decathlon. Fortunately, Céline could not attend today's event due to other professional obligations, but we have the experts here, of course. And Peter O'Seal, you would like to share with us a model on innovation, or at least point out a few highlights. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Indeed, the Decathlon page, but in fact, the 6 excellent pitches that will be presented today have inspired me to touch upon, let's say, 10 points divided over 2 interventions this afternoon. Now, the first point I would like to touch upon is the concept of value creation and value capturing. Now, innovation is very important for the capturing of value, but also for the creation of value. And value, we have to make a distinction between both concepts. Value creation is part of the strategy, and that's a theoretical concept. Value creation is practice. Value capturing, is practice, is implementation. Now, organizations struggle with strategy implementation, especially large companies. They are very good at execution, large companies, but they struggle, they are slow on change and innovation. That is why, for instance, Procter & Gamble is innovating its innovation process. That's an interesting thing to see. And that in the world we live in today, it's about agility, it's about rapid innovation, and it's about fast learning. The three go hand in hand, and experimentation goes with it. That is why large companies are now seeking collaboration with SMEs, with agile and lean startups, because we will see cases of that later on. Indeed, we will also have, for instance, Philip Morris. It's the second case I will touch upon. They say we borrow from the SME world. Now, that's the first point I wanted to touch upon. The second point I want to touch upon is about the customer. Leadership teams and organizations should put the customer at the core, at the heart of their strategy. They should be discussing 80% of their time in the boardroom about the customer and customer-related topics, opportunities, challenges, not at the operational level, but rather at the strategic level. And a nice example is the Decathlon example. Céline spoke about moving from a process-centric approach to a more customer, user-centric approach. She talked about the importance of the why, the customer point of view, before the what is the product itself. So that is very important. That brings me to the third point I want to touch upon briefly. And these are four simultaneous revolutions that are taking place as we speak. The first one is a data revolution. The second one is a technological revolution. And we all know about that. All of the pitches talk about digitalization. But there's a third and a fourth very important revolution. The third revolution is what I call a sociological revolution, and we call that the peer-to-peer revolution. That is a horizontal movement where co-creation and collaboration is extremely important. Procter & Gamble, and we will talk about that later, talks about a collaborative ecosystem. So that collaboration with government, with the legislation, with other companies, even with competitors, is extremely important. And the last revolution that is taking place as we speak is what we call the design revolution. Now, design revolution does not only refer to new products and new services, it also talks about designing the whole customer journey. Now, the customer journey entails seeing things from the point of view of the other, meaning that I have to understand what the customer wants, what he or she is going through. And seeing things from the point of view of the other means empathy. Now, organizations are very, very bad at empathic capabilities. And Decathlon gave a nice example, because they said, we don't talk about air permeability anymore. We speak about this jacket is windproof. So they take the perspective of the customer. Now, experts in organizations have a lot of issues with seeing things from the perspective of the other, because they are experts. They look at it from their perspective. And what do we have most in organizations? It's experts. Now, that brings me to the fourth element, and that is organizations need to get their house in order. And later on, DHL will talk about operational excellence. DHL will talk about, that's the rational side. DHL will speak about employee engagement. That's the relational side. Decathlon spoke about the horizontal collaboration between the engineering, marketing, and design department. And PMI will speak later on about new capabilities, a customer service, for instance, which they need. So organizations see things from a theoretical point of view, the strategy, and they need to move to implementation, a strategy implementation plan. That's not the same as a business plan. And moving from theory to practice, you need change in behavior. Now, change in behavior, as I explained earlier on, is very difficult because it hurts. If you don't feel the physical or mental pain, you're not changing your behavior. And in order to facilitate organizations with that, we need to help them. And that is, we need strong leadership. And what I'm missing a little bit in all 6 of the pitches is the discussion about the role of leadership in all of that. And finally, that brings me to my last point in my first intervention, if I may. And that is, in order to get your house in order, you need to look at the holistic picture. The holistic picture means that you have to see and strategy implementation and culture transformation and leadership and learning, seeing that together, not a salami approach. Secondly, we need to make a difference between change and transformation. Change is a better strategy, a better structure, better processes, better systems. That's the rational side. That's what we do every day. But transformation refers to the culture of an organization. And cultures means the sum of the individual behavior of people in an organization. And finally, it's all about learning. Learning is key for innovation. If you do not, people have a passion for learning. And so the question is, how can we ignite that passion for learning, Wim?
Right. Thank you very much for elaborating a little bit on how to make innovation possible and successful. We'll come back to that later on with the 5 other points. But first, we'll come to the third pitch. And the third pitch brings us to yet another large multinational company that can hopefully help us with our own aspirations to be innovative. And that's DHL Express, the largest provider of express services in the world. DHL's innovation pitch is brought to us by Bart van der Wallen, CIO at DHL Express Belux. And innovation has been an important and crucial step in the growth of DHL. And digitalization, we've already talked about it, is one of the cornerstones in this company's innovation procedure. How can digitalization help drive a business forward? Let's look at their story.
Good afternoon, welcome at DHL. DHL is the largest provider of express services in the world. Nobody covers the world like we do. Let me take you in our path on digitalization, innovation and growth. This is where the magic happens. Are you joining me?
Everything and nothing has changed. Even if the world feels uncertain, it's reassuring to know things that were important before still matter today. Connecting people, sharing ideas, and solving problems. These things will always be in our DNA. Working across borders, helping to keep doors open, business flowing, and continuing to realize the hopes and ambitions of our customers and colleagues. When you think about it like that, thankfully, not quite everything has changed.
Now, as you can imagine, the growth of DHL did not happen overnight. This is a story of continuous innovation and digitalization. When we talk about digitalization within DHL, we basically focus on 3 points. The first one is improve your customer experience. When you develop something or you deploy something in terms of systems and application, you always have to ask yourself, will my customer have a benefit out of it? The second one on which we always focus is employee engagement. You have to ask yourself, when you deploy something or you roll out a system or an application, will my employees be happier and will it be easier for them to work with? And the third and final one is the operational excellence. It needs to deliver an operational excellence, whether it's in finance, in operations, in customer service, but there need to be a tangible benefit in terms of operations. Now, in DHL we have a definition for digitalization. Digitalization is the conscious application of technology to increase the enablement of our employees to drive a customer experience and an operational excellence. The question you can ask yourself is, what is the main goal? What's my main purpose? The main purpose should not be to try to sell or to force a product or a service, but you should focus on offering a real solution which benefits your customers. Now let me take you into an example of how we implemented that one in DHL. It's called ODD, On-Demand Delivery. Now, where does it come from? We've been into the business of business to business for so many years, but approximately 10 years ago we saw a fundamental shift in the economy with the business to consumers. A lot of companies started producing goods and selling them over the internet, so we were confronted with a new type of business. The first one was we got new shippers, which are shipping web goods all over the world. And the second one is we were confronted with a new type of receivers, being people at home, you and me. So what was the challenge? The challenge became really clear in a moment that we pick up a shipment wherever you produce it. You produce it in South Africa, in Singapore, in China. We fly it all over the world to deliver it in the best possible way and the best possible transit time to you. And guess what? We end up and we're in front of a closed doorstep. So what was the challenge? To take out that waste, that failed delivery out of the process. How did we do that? We developed a web platform called On-Demand Delivery, where both shippers and receivers could register. Now, what's the benefit for them? They could schedule their own deliveries. If it didn't suit them, they could choose another date. If they were on a holiday, they could choose another delivery date. If they couldn't make it on that spot, they could use another location. If they could not receive the goods themselves, they could choose to have it delivered at another person. So basically, the whole in-transit changed completely, and we offered our customers the possibility to register and to have their own preferences fulfilled. How does it do it? Very simple. You go to the website, you register, and automatically you get a number of notifications, whether it's via SMS, whether it's via an email, to get you up to date on the status of your shipments. At the beginning of the digitalization, when we started to introduce on-demand delivery, I talked to you about 3 topics which we call focus. Now, let's have a quick look if we achieved them. The first one, customer experience. Did it improve? Absolutely. We listened to you and we delivered it where and when you wanted it. The second one, employee engagement. We've got couriers all over the world doing their best to deliver that shipment, that perfect shipment for you on time. Now, it's also a benefit for them when a successful delivery happens for the first time. And the third one is operational excellence. We have saved so much miles, so much innocent stops that we've done, so this is really a sustainable solution that we've offered. Is it that easy for everybody? No, it isn't. Now, let me take you to another example where you don't need large programs, where you don't need large financing, and give you an example of what we introduced at a smaller level, which can also apply for your small and medium-sized companies. What is it called? It was our development of our internal chatbot at customer service. What was the challenge? We provide so much information to our customer service agents, whether they're frontline, backline, key account desk, and we give them all that information. Now what do we see? They store that information about shipments, products, duties and everything. They store it on a piece of paper. They put it on a post-it. They write it in a book. They store it on a public drive, on an iShare, whatever. But what is the issue? Tomorrow I have to update that information to everybody again. So what is the risk? The risk is that you get confronted with legacies, with old information which are not maintained. So that was the challenge. How did we cope with the challenge? We looked into a possibility to provide always accurate information. And so we came up with the chatbot, which we call DEX, our friend, internal chatbot at DHL. What does it do? Basically, it's a product from Google. It's based on Google Dialogflow, where you work with a number of intents. And intents may be a difficult word. Basically, it's a number of questions and answers, and you provide them with a number of keywords. So you narrow down the different questions to the right answer that can provide it to the customer when he's calling customer service. Okay, so what did we see after a couple of weeks? After a couple of weeks, it really went very, very well. First of all, we saw the quality of the information was much more accurate than before. So that leads automatically to an improved customer service experience. The second one was we experienced that our employees who were previously looking for that information in all different kinds of files, they found one single source of truth where they could find the answers to provide them to customers. How could we see that? The third one, we saw it in the operational excellence. We were looking previously into queries of 45 to 60 seconds to retrieve that information, and basically we tunneled that down into a more 5 to 10 seconds of retrieval of that information. So when you come back to the focus of digitalization, where we have customers, employees and excellence, they were all combined in a simple tool called a chatbot, locally developed on a platform, easy to use, available for all. So, was it successful for us? Absolutely. The internal chatbot was a real success. Was it recognized by the industry as well? Absolutely. This year, we won the Customer Service Stevie Award for our internal chatbot development. I hope you enjoyed our short pitch about digitalization in DHL and how we use technology to increase that customer experience, to drive employee engagement, and basically to deliver the operational excellence. As somebody once said, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to become great. From all of us here at DHL, thank you for listening, take care and stay safe.
And Bart van der Wallen from DHL is here with us today. Thank you for joining us. And if you have a question for Bart, don't hesitate. Just use the chat window and let us know. We'll let the experts also share their views on this case. And let me start maybe with Ann Kozart. What can we learn from the DHL Express case in your mind?
Well, I think the biggest thing is let it inspire lots of SMEs to start a digital project, a digital trajectory, and to start with digital transformation within their company. Although at the same time, I have to immediately say that digital transformation is such a big word that gathers so much different information that at first you have to look at the transformation in itself. And as DHL was stating, the digital transformation for them, it's a conscious application of technology. So digital, it's technology, but to me, the most important thing is what you do with this technology and what do you want to change. But if you as a company say, I want to perform digital transformation, you will end up nowhere. You need to focus, you need to make choices. And we've seen two separate cases of one, which is an internal operational efficiency, it benefits the customer, but it's like their focus that they want an operational excellence. This is like projects within Industry 4.0. You use new digital technology, robots, cobots, to improve your operational process. This is very important to do, but then make that one project, don't mix it up with others. You can have projects of digital transformation in the front office where you improve your customer service, you improve the backing of the information that is delivered by suppliers, you treat this information. And so for an SME where you have a CEO of an SME who is doing everything, then for him or her, it becomes difficult. That's why you need to maybe start with a board of advisors that help you with the digital path. There are lots of scans or projects that can help you to find these quick wins, because there for sure are quick wins within SMEs, and then build a roadmap. What are projects we can start up that gives on an immediate term benefit? Because it's not something you can do within 1 month. It's a long-term strategy. And sometimes with what is happening now with the COVID crisis, it's the ultimate challenge to start applying digital technologies within the companies. But I do hope they do this applications with a strategy that some of these elements they will use now will survive for the future, because you can build now a more agile company, a more straightforward company. And as you see the cases with DHL, and these are cases, projects that are doable for SMEs. So,
but could you explain how you made the decision where to start with digitalization?
Well, thank you for the question. The digitalization, we have, of course, a lot of digital initiatives within a company. We're a large company, a global company, and every year the Global Management Board, that is at a global level, they set up a clear guideline, a clear path.
Priorities.
Priorities. It's about priorities, about focus. They said, for example, this year, these are the top 10 digitalization initiatives, okay? We're not going to focus, even if we're in 220 countries, we're not going to focus on everything. We focus on RPA, for example. We're going to focus on internal chatbots. We're going to focus on customer experience improvements. So we're going to focus on digitalization of customs processes and these things. So on one hand, you have a top-down, what we call the digitalization flipbook, with the top 10 initiatives that we go. At the other hand, it's a top-down approach, but at the other hand, we also have a bottom-up approach. A lot of companies out there, small and larger ones, never underestimate the power which is inside your own personnel. There's a lot of people there with very good thoughts about digitalization and innovation. So we have also a bottom-up structure, which we call a campfire approach. Every year we have a campfire approach, which gets like everybody who has an idea, he can put it out there in a campfire. It's a small pitch. Why am I doing this? Why should we follow it up? And how do you want to implement it?
Yeah.
And then it goes up, and then it comes down as a matter of priorities, a focus, just like you said exactly. Yeah, you need to start, and you need to have a plan exactly when you want to go into that digitalization.
Yes. Here's another question for you. Did you have employee resistance in change, and how did you experience that and deal with it?
Oh, absolutely, very valid question. Let's be very honest, nobody likes to change. Ask somebody, do we need change? Yes, everybody who likes to change, quite, okay? So every process is a difficult process, yeah? We have a very good and very simple philosophy on it, and it's our global CIO says, it's about an evolution, not a revolution, okay? You go step by step, and you try to communicate why you want to do these things. Yeah? And when you say why you want to do these things, you also need to be careful that you reflect and say, why am I not doing something else? Okay? So people said, why are we focusing on these finance applications or on that operations applications while everybody says we need this in customer service? No, it's choice. And when you make that choice, you communicate what you do, and also very important, why you don't do something else. Resistance is normally people will object, so it's very important that you communicate on the why and always have it, what's in it for me, for your customer, but also for your employees. Never forget, you can deliver a fantastic system, a bright application, but if somebody at the front end says like, I don't really like it, yeah, he or she is not going to use it. And the second one is, never forget that your company is also transforming, not only digital, but in terms of employee workforce. Somebody that joined the company in this COVID crisis, he or she doesn't have a clue what we relaunched 19 months ago. So you need to reflect, people come, and you need to pick up these things to
communicate.
Very absolutely yes. Key, absolutely.
Yeah. Another question for you is this one: do you work with dedicated innovation teams?
At a global level, absolutely. At a global level, absolutely. So at a global level, people focus on specific industries, on specific challenges, and they are the brains really to develop specific innovation projects globally. But as I said, every single person in DHL, he or she can come up with an idea at a local level to push something forward and to say, I am ready for this one and I would like to push this one.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bert van der Wallen from DHL Express. Well, we hope that these three cases already provided you with quite some inspiration on how to be innovative in your organization. We will now take a short break and we will resume the pitches in a few minutes. We have 3 more pitches to go. See you soon. Welcome back, all of you, wherever you're joining us from home or work, in whichever country. Welcome back for the second part of this Innovation Summit within the IES or ICE project. We've arrived at the fourth innovation case study this afternoon, and this case will be presented by Pierre de Raad, Director of External Affairs Belgium and Luxembourg at Philip Morris Benelux. Today, we are more and more used to seeing emerging startups disrupting traditional industries through the use of technology and new ways of working. In this case, a leading multinational company is disrupting its own profitable business. This is the story Philip Morris International is writing today, with its vision of a smoke-free future through a thorough company transformation.
Philip Morris International, you might know, is one of the biggest tobacco companies in the world. We are mainly known for the cigarette brands like Marlboro and L&M. But for the last couple of years, we have been initiated a major transformation in our company, which is basically building a new business model, which is based on phasing out the traditional cigarettes we know and going for different alternatives with a reduced risk. So that transformation entails a lot of different components, especially for a multinational like us, which is not a really easy thing to do, quite complex. You have to understand we are approximately at 80,000 employees all over the world. We're operating in more than 140 markets. And basically this makes the process of transformation not that easy. So how did we do it? Basically, we based our strategy of transformation on three big pillars. The first pillar is what we call the product transformation. The second one is what we call the internal transformation, and the third one is what we call the external transformation. Over the few coming minutes, I will go briefly through these three pillars and what does it mean. So first of all, we have the product transformation, which is basically before you transform your business model, obviously you need to have a product, a solution you want to offer, a different product or solution you want to offer to the consumer, to the market. So basically that started there. We have been working for years with our R&D colleagues on different solutions which are able to reduce the risk of using nicotine compared to cigarettes, to the traditional cigarettes. So ultimately, after, I would say, quite some investments on R&D, we were able to develop a number of products where we believe that one day will be acceptable for smokers to convert from cigarettes to these alternatives. And secondly, obviously, products which have a clear potential to dramatically reduce the risk of using nicotine compared to cigarette smoking. So after a number of years, we believe that we have that solution, and then we initiated 3 to 4 years ago the transformation throughout the company to be able to market these products in a good way. And there it's where you have the second pillar coming in, which is the internal transformation. When you have to market new products which are based on different technologies than your previous products, you obviously need new competencies internally, and also probably you will need to organize yourself differently. Just to give you a small example, a cigarette, a normal cigarette, everybody knows how it works. You buy it, you open it, put it in your mouth, and you light it, and then you use the cigarette. Now, the different alternatives we have been developing to reduce the risk of using nicotine are also based on devices heating tobacco sticks, for instance, or electronic cigarettes, as you know, maybe on the market already. But there are devices, electronic devices involved, which makes the process a bit more complicated, and a totally different set of competencies is needed. For instance, if you have electronic devices in your solution, you need to have a customer care service, which we never had before when we just sold cigarettes, obviously. So you need to build these competencies internally, and you need to reorganize the whole company to be able to serve these new solutions. So the internal transformation is all about reorganizing in terms of supporting your new solution, and secondly, looking at, do we have the necessary competencies to do so? Meaning that you need to either reskill a part of your labor force, or eventually recruit externally to get these competencies and expertise in your own company. So the whole internal transformation is quite a big piece of work, I have to say, and it's really critical in being successful in the transformation ultimately. The third one we focus on is in the external transformation. That's where I am really a lot involved. Because if you bring a new solution to the market and you want to be successful, you really need to have a kind of a support for your product. I mean, an acknowledgement by the general population that this makes sense for society in general. That's why we really went into these reduced risk products, because it makes a societal difference. You can provide to these people who continue to smoke a better alternative than what they are doing now. So you need to also get the support in general of society to be able to be successful there. But that means that you need to get the buy-in of these people. It means general public, but obviously also legislators, because for a lot of innovations, and I think a lot of smaller companies, bigger companies with new innovation will have the same struggle. The law is not made for these new products. They don't support these new products in one way or another. And having the right regulatory framework for a new solution is key to be successful. If you cannot promote your product in the right way, bring it to the consumers you want to target, because the law makes it a barrier, then you really have kind of a problem to be successful on the long run. So the external transformation, meaning getting the buy-in of society at large, legislators, general public, and so on, is key to be successful on the long run. So in a wrap-up, these are the three pillars we are really focusing on, and just in a nutshell, what the focus points would be in that transformation of us, and we hope that obviously over the years to come we will be able to finalize the complete process. If you look at our transformation, if you look at a transformation journey we are doing and how we operate and where we want to go to, a lot of the things we want to go to are things we are borrowing from the SME world. I mean, in the sense that obviously we will work way more with technology devices and so on, which is a way faster moving market than we are used to in the cigarettes. So you need to be much more lean. So you need to get these processes from these companies who are really able to move quickly, change quickly, and a lot of these companies are typically the smaller enterprises, the startups and so on. So we borrow a lot of the things we are doing, we borrow exactly from the SME world. So we're trying to move to, or also organization-wise, to a much more flexible type of working, meaning we will work with very fast trial and error. So, which is typically a lean concept, you know, you try on a small scale, then does it work, doesn't it work? If it doesn't work, we try something else, but you do it quickly, a lot of reiterations until you find the right thing which works, and then you expand, which is typically something you see in the startup world and in the SME world. So I think there is a lot of connections, yes.
Thank you very much, Pierre de Raad, for your explanation, and thank you for joining us. Indeed, a very thorough innovation with Philip Morris. Product transformation, but also transforming competencies for employees and positioning it differently externally. Now, Professor Pieter Osseel, you have a few key points more to share with us on successful innovation. Yeah. Let's first have a look at those, maybe.
Thank you, Wim. Let's continue with the story. I started earlier on. The next point is what Pierre just spoke about, is his three pillars of transformation, product, internal and external. I think I'd like to take it a level higher and talk about the three key strategies which are necessary for innovation, for successful innovation. That is a business strategy, that is leadership strategy, and that is an engagement strategy. These are three different explicit strategy. Now, the business strategy is all about your customer, it's about innovation, it's about digitalization, and it's about changing your culture. The leadership strategy, and again, this is very important. I come back because it has not been touched upon sufficiently within the 6 pages. It's been there implicitly, but not explicitly. So we need courageous and decisive leadership for innovation to work. That means speaking with one voice, walking the talk. These are just two examples. And finally, we need an engagement strategy. That means that we have to take everybody in the organization, all the employees with us on the journey towards our preferred future, which is for PMI, the new business model. The next point, that engagement strategy brings me to the next point, which is, I spoke earlier about that 80% of the time should be about the customer. I think part of that 80% should be about employees in the organization. And there are 3 people objectives which can help with innovation. The first one is anti-fragility. In these COVID times, hospitals, schools, small businesses, restaurants, pubs struggle. They were not prepared for that disruption. So these organizations are very fragile. What we need to do is help organizations and help people within organizations to be far more anti-fragile. A second people objective is within the realm of sustainable growth. Sustainable growth has 3 elements. The first element we touched upon, it's profit, it's value creation, it's value capturing, it's turnover. That's one pillar. Second pillar, we talk about it with ArcelorMittal, for instance, is the environment, reduction of CO2, the climate. But people forget that in order to achieve sustainable growth, we need a third pillar, and that's a people pillar. And that's giving people in the organization purpose, hope, and opportunities to learn professionally and privately. And the third people objective is creating commitment for results. Leaders should create commitment in their organizations for the results you want to achieve. That is, again, that horizontal movement, that peer-to-peer movement, that co-creation and that collaboration. That brings me to the next point, and that is, what do we mean by innovation? And that's a point I am not going to touch upon because we don't have time, but the 6 pitches have inspired me to draw a little bit a innovation framework. And if people are interested in discussing or seeing that innovation framework, they can always contact me afterwards. That brings me to the point of structure and behavior economics. Innovation implies a change in behavior. A change in behavior with your customers, but also with the people in your own organization. And there are 2 things which play a role, and that's structure, and that's what you spoke about, Pierre, is the structure of your organization. Structure is never a goal in itself, but it can be a means to an end to help the people change their behavior. And that is what you did with the new business model. A second element is behavior economics. You had to discuss a lot with the legal people, with the government in order to make your innovation possible, Pierre. And that is where nudging comes in. How do I bring a message that is acceptable for the people who want to buy the product and for the government, for instance? And also, when we had the Decathlon case, the lady, Céline, she spoke about being more human-centric. And that means that we have to understand human biases. Human behavior is not rational. We are full of human biases, and that is important to understand these human biases. Now, the last point then is that I'd like to refer a little bit to innovation killers. And a first very important point is, if you're not capable to innovate your own organization, you will never be able to innovate. That's a very important first point. A second point that is very important is, and I touched upon it, is we need you have to get your house in order. You have to break through the silos, the departments. Again, it's an example that has been given, is with Decathlon. They work together, the engineering department, the design department, the operations department. A third killer of innovation is that people use training as a change strategy, and I want to be very clear. Training as a change strategy does not work. A fourth element, which is very important, is that everybody in the organization, and I mean literally everybody, has to understand what it means, consumer experience, the customer experience and the customer convenience as part of the customer journey. If people don't understand that, how can you help this innovation to thrive and to work outside? Another innovation killer is if you have a culture in your organization of giving presentations. People who move from one room to the other to give presentations to each other. Well, if you have a culture like that, the chances are that you will not be able to innovate. Another one is you have organizations where they say, for every problem we have a solution. That's great. But you also have cultures which say, for every problem we find, or for every solution, we find another problem. Well, if you have that culture, it's not going to work either. And another one is people measure, and measuring is knowing, and that's very important. But it's not because you know the measures of it that people are going to change their behavior. COVID is a nice example. We see the measures every day, the numbers on television, but we don't change our behavior. And finally, your innovation process is very important. If you have a heavy legacy of your innovation process, it's going to be very difficult. So you have to innovate your innovation process, as Procter & Gamble will suggest later on, Wim. These are the 10 innovation killers, or 8 innovation killers.
Thank you very much for that. Now we have some questions for Pierre coming in from the viewers, but let me pick up one point from what the professor said, that he didn't see a lot in either one of the pictures, and that's the importance of leadership. Could you briefly touch upon that? How important is leadership in Philip Morris to drive innovation?
I think it's crucial. I mean, not only I think as a company, you need to take leadership within your segment, your sector. I mean, we are one of the biggest ones, and what we are doing is quite disruptive. So you can gain a competitive edge by taking this risk, because it's a risk. You're throwing out the window a working business model and you replace it by another, and there is no return, basically. So, but it can give you an enormous competitive edge. That's leadership. I mean, it's a bold move from a leader in the segment. So that's first one. Secondly, obviously, internally, it's absolutely necessary, and he talked about it, walking the talk. I mean, if the management, the leaders of the company are not doing consistently what they are preaching outside,
yes.
I mean, how credible are you? And if the people internally don't feel that credibility, if the management is not credible, how will they walk the talk also externally? They're also ambassadors of your company and your vision as well. That's 80,000 people who can be ambassador of your vision, your product, and all the rest. So it's critical.
So does that mean very concretely that innovation has to be on the plate of the CEO?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Innovation
is the one who has to really communicate on it, and yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Another question for you. Isn't it smart to involve sales in innovations? They are the first link with the customer next to marketing, engineering, and design.
Well, we touched upon the concept of customer journey, consumer journey. I mean, innovation is not only the product, it's all how to get market access, how to provide access to the consumers, and the whole journey, meaning it's a lot of different components and a whole journey he's going through, where you need to identify pain points, what is done, what doesn't work, how is he behaving on different concepts, and so on. So I think, and there obviously cross-functional teams, including sales, can be critical, because you need these insights of this whole consumer journey with all the puzzle pieces, and there identify where does it go wrong or where can it be improved. It can be in sales. So I think it's critical that you include as much as possible cross-functional teams, and that can be sales as well, definitely.
Right. Well, very briefly, maybe last one, of the 3 pillars that make up your strategy, transformation, product transformation, internal and external transformation, those 3, which one was the most challenging to implement, and why?
Look, I think one cannot be seen without the other. It's complementary. Obviously, I think one pillar can be maybe a bit more difficult for one company or one sector, depending on the sector. Obviously, for our company, we are a tobacco company with a lot of history, a lot of perception around it. So obviously, the external pillar is not an easy one, because you need to turn around the whole perceptions of many years. So for us, that specifically one is probably a bit more difficult than maybe for other companies. But I think it's very much depending on where you work, and certain pillars will be more difficult for one company or another. But I think you need to see them as a whole. It doesn't work separately.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We've already arrived at the 5th innovation pitch, and with that, we will put all the spotlights on a company that is really a West Flemish company at heart, Beaulieu International Group. Beaulieu is a Belgian floor coverings manufacturing company with its head offices in Wielsbeek, West-Vlaanderen, founded 60 years ago. And we have to say, books, articles, YouTube movies can teach us to some extent how to start being innovative, how to embed a culture of innovation and which processes to use. But in practice, it's not that easy, especially not in a long-established company where tradition is important, like Philip Morris. Instead of heading straight for the goal, you sometimes have to take a winding road. In this presentation, Paul Lombard will share insights on how to innovate in a big company by using a non-linear path to success. And Paul Lombard is R&D Director at Beaulieu International Group.
Beaulieu International Group is a family-owned company here in Belgium, but also with a lot of branches abroad. And we are active in 3 different business units. In the first business unit, polymers, we manufacture polypropylene. In our second business unit, engineered products, we turn polypropylene and other polymers into engineered products. And last but not least, in our third business unit, we make a wide variety of floor coverings. Why is innovation in an established company so difficult? Well, established companies, they have good procedures, they have rules in place, they have hierarchies in place. All of those things which make a company really work and really thrive, but on the other hand, which also have a really strict path ahead. Whereas in a more innovative company, you are working with more agile teams, with different people, with different levels of people in projects, rather than doing the day-to-day standard business. This makes that the philosophy of an innovative company is different than the philosophy which is in an established company. In my opinion, Beaulieu is a very innovative company. Let me highlight 3 examples. First, we have our Rewind carpet. Rewind carpet is a fully recyclable fair carpet. So if you have an event or a fair, then mostly the carpet is being used for a couple of days, maybe up to a week, and is then generally thrown away. Now, through innovation in Beaulieu, we have developed the right polymers, the right fibers, and finally also the right carpet in order to make this event and fair carpet fully recyclable. As a second example, I want to tell you about cushion vinyl. Cushion vinyl is perceived by many as a very old-fashioned product. Well, it's not. We've brought it into the digital age. We've brought digital printing to cushion vinyl, and we've even enhanced it with 3D effects as to make a perfect floor for you. This really rejuvenated our cushion vinyl. Last, I want to speak about our digital colored parquet. Building on the knowledge that we gained in digital printing of cushion vinyl, we've also made a digital coloring possible for our parquet line. Our parquet, based on oak planks, are now being colored in a digital way, leading to less waste in the factory and a more sustainable product. How did we make all of this happen in Beaulieu International Group? Well, 7 years ago, Frans van Giel, our former CTO, started the RED team. RED stands for Research, Engineering and Development. In the RED team, we cooperate very closely with our different businesses across the world in order to create this long-term sustainable competitive advantage. Let me talk you through our 4 pillars and how we organized it in practice. As you know, the first pillar is about people. On a yearly basis, we hire a well-balanced mix between young and experienced engineers in order for innovation to thrive within BIG. These people have a real career path in front of them, and in order to support this career path, we have a full training program in place in order to make them successful. For our second pillar, Organize for Success, we've obviously created the RED team, but next to that, we also have very strong cooperations with all of our divisions in the group and with universities such as KU Leuven, Ghent University, but also international universities across the world. In the third pillar, assure our technological advance, we use a variety of methods in order to be successful. First, and logically, we apply an innovation funnel for all of our innovation processes. Next, we also have the necessary software tools in place in order to make innovation a success and to make it very efficient. Read the balance between cost and outcome, or cost and value, must be optimal. Our fourth and last pillar is focus. It is important to focus because there's a myriad of ideas available in the group, and you have to choose which ones to tackle and which ones not to tackle. Therefore, we have a strong portfolio management in place, where we choose on a continuous basis between those projects which are valuable to the company and which bring value for long-term sustainable competitive advantage, and which projects do not. Is this RED program successful for BIG? Well, it is, for sure. If I look back, then in terms of people, we have already hired more than 60 young and creative engineers, and 20 of them have already shifted into another position in our group and are now responsible for operations, marketing, product development, so a wide variety of functions where they also deliver value. In terms of result of this innovation process, I have talked to you about the 3 successful innovations that we've brought on the market, and of course there's much more. There's much more which has been brought on the market, and there's much more in our pipeline, but you will surely understand that our pipeline is confidential. Of course, you could question yourself, what if I were working for an SME? Could we then also implement this type of RED program? In my opinion, you can. What I would keep is the 4 principles, but of course you would need to scale somewhat on the amount of people and eventually also on the amount of cost that you bring into the equation. But all in all, I am sure that also as an SME you can be very successful by using these principles.
Thank you very much, Paul Lambaert, for sharing that with us. Let me first go to the other side, to Anne Koolsaert. Anne, what factors do you think contribute to innovation success when it comes to programs like RED, the program that Beaulieu Group developed?
Well, basically, you have the 4 elements which are very vital, because if we translate it to the SME context, which is the goal of this summit, I think hiring this amount of people, this is a huge challenge for SMEs, and maybe not. But if I combine it with the other cases that have been told, it's about collaboration with startups. I think this is a way to involve young people into an SME by collaborating with startups. It's not mentioned in the Beaulieu case, but it's mentioned in other cases, because youngsters are digital natives. For them, it's obvious to use digital technology, where older people are not born with digital tools, so they had to adapt, and there is always a difference. And one of the good things that happens is mentoring. We are used, and we come from an age where we are told that the older people are learning the younger people how to work, but we have to reverse it, because we can learn from the young people as well. So I think in companies and SMEs, for the people aspect, we should start mentoring from the 2 sides, from youngsters to elder people and from elder people to younger. And then about the organization and the structure, it's clear when I come with, when I work with SMEs and I visit them, sometimes they miss or they lack an innovation method, a process, a structured way of doing things. They're not used of looking what is ahead of them and disruptive technologies, what might be useful. So I think it's a very good step of starting to introduce a process like Beaulieu is telling, the innovation funnel, to have a structured way of looking for new projects, new innovation, but having a method in place that prioritizes these projects and that gives them a kind of roadmap that says these projects can be done first or most important, because this is a learning step for the SMEs, and not every SME is already into that, because you have a lot of people, it's kind of belly feeling. They say, I find a new idea, I think it will work, and they start doing it. And but also on the kind of empowerment. I always mention the book From Good to Great, where if you want to have a good leadership, somewhere in the book it's mentioned, you have to hire people that want to be on your train, not because you're driving your train towards A, but because they just want to be on your train. And that's why, that's the real engagement of innovation. You need to have a crowd that wants to be part of your company, like the case of Philip Morris, that this is a big disruption, but if you can have your employees wanting to be on your train towards this disruption, then you can thrive on the innovation, and that is doable for an SME. So I think it's all about structurizing, prioritizing, but also keeping the creativity alive. And that's why you need this mixing of youngsters with elder people, looking outside the corners, that's outside the box thinking, or maybe just going to an event from another industry just to learn something, because just by opening your eyes and looking at another way at things, you can learn so much more about the future.
Okay. Now, talking about people, we have a question coming in for you from Peter Daals. He asks, on what criteria do you select people for your innovation projects?
Well, for people, I would like to touch upon 2 points. First, maybe on the question, we do select people for their potential to grow within the company. As you said, they have to be able to fit on the train, yeah? Not only in innovation, but in the company or the group as a whole, with a potential to grow. Because staying in the innovation department, that's just for a couple of years of their time, and then they have to move on, they have to spread their wings and find another position in our group. Yeah? So clearly we select for growth. Then on the other hand, on people, I want to comment on the concept that you said for the SMEs between having contacts with, let's say, startups and other companies. I think that's vital. And maybe this is not so clear from what I said, but this is indeed how we do it. Because on one hand, 60 people may sound like a lot, but on the other hand, we are with 5,000 people across the globe. But it's indeed these 60 young enthusiasts that you take on board, that you let them do innovative projects together with indeed older, more experienced people. They make the change happen. And then once these people, and we have about 20 that have already shifted, once these shift to a new position in our group, they are again the leaders for change. And then you get a self-reinforcing effect. It's a wheel that starts to spin. It takes a while, of course, logic. But once it's spinning, it's going pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Can you give any further tips or advice on how a smaller SME could adopt a more innovative philosophy? Which of your 4 pillars would be most useful or important for smaller companies?
Well, people, of course, are important. You have to have people with the right mindset on board. That's critical. But if you would park people, then the next one would be focus. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of ideas. There's lots of gut feeling in this world. But focus your attempts and focus also your resources, your financial resources on the right things, and make good choices.
That's a confirmation of what we heard before.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us
You're welcome.
today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the last innovation showcase is from Procter & Gamble in collaboration with the grocery and Workero. We will see 4 people in the next video. André Convents is Senior Innovator at P&G. Lucrèce van Wondergem is Open Innovation Intrapreneur at P&G. Charlotte Gréant is part of the grocery, and Dirk Paling is CEO at Workero. And in the new world of rapid growth and ecosystem-enabled transformation, partnerships are more important than ever, even during a global pandemic. The collaboration between Workero and P&G demonstrates how established corporations and startups can collaborate in a new innovation campus model. Let's have a look.
Today's world have huge challenges, whether it's environmental, energy, consumer, or even things like COVID. Under these conditions, we have to change full value chains, and that requires multiple partners. So in that environment, we need to create ecosystems of large companies and small companies, as well as governmental organizations, to work together. For instance, even a large company like P&G, if we want to tackle the plastics problem, as one example, we need to work with several partners. Whether it's the companies who actually collect waste and recycle it, to us creating solutions where we can convince the consumers to recycle. So this is an excellent example, and based on that, we also think that companies like us need to reinvent on how we innovate. And that is exactly why we created what we can call the Incubate Campus at P&G. And this Incubate Campus has 3 components, and that's why we are all together today to talk that. The first one is that we need to open our best capabilities for others to work with us. And that is a capability that we as P&G, we opened it, and we call it 1 week to launch. That means these are the components which allow us to create products within 1 week in principle. These 4 components are consumer understanding, a consumer launch to deeply understand consumer needs and addressed solutions. Secondly, a rapid iteration for prototypes which are finished and can be used ad hoc. The third one is making small series where you can do consumer testing or even start selling. And the fourth one is sales capability. This is all capability that we as P&G are opening up. But that is not enough. On top, we need to also partner with an organization who has the deepest and best connection with the local ecosystem on startups. And that is the team of Grocery.
So the Grocery is an open innovation platform. We match corporate partners and large companies with startups in innovation. So what's happening today, corporates want to innovate and startups are looking for partners, but it's hard for both sides to find the match. What we do exactly is we co-define together with our partner, we co-define a challenge and we go and look for solutions that we can find in the startup scene. Then we select the startups and we make sure that they meet each other, that they match, and they can start building towards a proof of concept together. For startups, you should not underestimate it. For startups, often it's very hard to connect with these larger partners. They don't know where to start. They don't know how to begin. They have these innovative solutions, but they don't know who to reach or how to work together. And on top of that, for them, it's very important to squeeze time, to reduce time, and to find the right partners or the right connection within the partner as soon as possible. For corporate partners, on the other hand side, it's hard to see like, okay, this is my challenge, this is what I would like to improve, but where do I start? And you can start to innovate and to find a solution internally, but often there is already a solution out there and it goes way faster and way more smooth if you just connect with them. And that's where the Grocery comes into place and where we can make the match and help you out.
But more importantly, we also need to bring together partners together in a co-working Connectum environment. And that's why, on the same campus, we work together with Workero.
With Workero, as an example here on the Procter & Gamble side, we are facilitating innovation and co-creation, which means that by opening up its premises and its offices to other people, Procter & Gamble is in fact inviting everyone to better work with them together, and not only startups and scale-ups, but also suppliers, because, and this goes also for SMEs, you have suppliers that are giving you products or selling you products for some time. Well, now is the moment to create your own space, and within that space you can invite your suppliers to develop new products with your suppliers. So your suppliers, instead of becoming just a supplier, they become someone with whom you can innovate and invent and market new products. The Work Hero concept is not only applicable to large corporates. We are starting, of course, now also in places such as Decathlon, but we have already more than 40 locations which are SMEs and even some of them startups that have opened up their own premises and also started within their own premises and building with a Work Hero concept, which means that they rent out offices that can be used, that can be rented by startups, by other scale-ups or by companies to better work together.
First of all, I need to emphasize how a company like P&G needs to innovate. There's two ways of doing that. First is working innovation on our biggest brands, whether it's Ariel, Lenore, Braun or Gillette. This is big innovations on big brands, and there we need to, under the hood, create new innovation. An example is working with ML6, which is a local, very strong AI company, to, for instance, automate production in our plants. The second one is that we need to work as entrepreneurs with entrepreneurs on creating the future businesses which could disrupt ourselves in the future. And we call that constructive disruption. And for that, we work, for instance, with companies like Bundles, who are doing laundry services, or even in the air cleaning space with some of the companies who provide nature-based air cleaning. So SMEs are very powerful at innovation, and they can use venturing at their advantage. There's a fantastic publication, a recent publication from the University of Antwerp, outlining corporate innovation in 20 different ways of working, from a simple hackathon to an acquisition. Now, many SMEs in the region, probably more than 80% of the SMEs have a corporate or even a government as a customer. So the first recommendation is go as fast as possible in bed with your customer to learn what innovation needs there are, but also to prototype as fast as possible. Because in more than 90% of the cases, what you prototype or what you thought would be a big innovation is actually not in the eyes of the customer, and you need to pivot or change the solution. For us, we have seen that actually during COVID, innovation accelerated and demonstrated that you can innovate at a speed which is unprecedented. And maybe let me give you a regional example. At the beginning of COVID, there was a huge need for hand gels. And they were not available neither in hospitals and nursing homes. But within 1 week or 2 weeks, we pulled together the smart expertise from a range of companies where you would think they would not be able to help. So P&G helped with solutions, but also together with a company like Johnson & Johnson, but even unexpected companies like AB InBev, who make beer, or some of the alcohol or beverage companies. And within a short time, we created supply and provided solutions to hospitals. And this was actually organized together with an association like Essentia. And so this illustrates very well that with large companies working together, startups and governmental organizations, we can really rapidly create solutions. And for that, you need a platform of what we call radical collaboration, where you need a worker, you need to have an organization where you can partner together and then have a short-term goal.
Over the last 4 to 5 years, we have tested several new ways of innovation, from large hackathons, makeathons, flash hacks, and of course, matchmaking and pitching and co-creation with startups and SMEs. All of these elements are now coming together in the Incubate Accelerator that we are launching officially as we speak. So what are the benefits of startups coming and working in the Incubate Accelerator? First, they can use the Incubate Consumer Lounge, which is an open house that they can use for consumer research. Secondly, if they need prototypes, they can use the prototyping facility that we have available and are opening up to everyone to use and to test. Thirdly, they can come to the Workero spaces and collaborate and co-create physically with us or with other partners or with other startups.
The future is in ecosystem collaboration with different partners. We have a huge opportunity in the region where you have a high concentration of large corporates with very different expertise, not only digital companies, but going from pharma to materials, to appliances and food on a very small square meter environment, together with startups and of course fueled by top universities. This is unique in the world. We have an opportunity to accelerate or improve the collaboration with these partners. And since we P&G have a large footprint in the region, that is something we want to foster and stimulate.
So the future is in ecosystem collaboration with several partners, a wonderful example of cooperation. 3 organizations working together to strive for innovation, and congratulations, I would say, with the Incubate Accelerator. André Convents from P&G and Dirk Palink from Workero. But first, Wim van Kamp, maybe, is collaboration between large global companies or, let's say, established companies and startups indispensable in order to stimulate innovation?
It definitely leads to symbiosis between the two parties. Small companies, they need expertise which they don't have themselves. They have often very good ideas, product concepts, innovation solutions, but they need to proof test them. And they don't have all the expertise in-house to do that proof testing. So they need access to competencies of large companies to do so. On the other hand, the large companies often don't have the agility to pick up new ideas as fast as small companies can do. And in that sense, I think the concept of co-housing, which was explained here today, is helping a lot. It creates proximity. Proximity leads to human interaction, and that is essential for having a willingness to engage with each other. If you think about the concept as presented today, I think it's very interesting. The first incubator actually that we started in as Kent University was in the 1980s, so quite a long while ago. So the idea is not new, but you have seen 2 major trends over the past years. First is that they've become domain specific. So now you would have a clean tech incubator, you would have a fintech incubator, a biotech incubator. And secondly, large companies are starting to open up incubators or co-housing facilities. And that's something which we haven't seen 10 or 15 years ago. So that's indeed quite novel and very interesting for the reasons we just explained. I think that the challenge that we might still be facing is in order to establish a partnership between a small company and a large company, you need to align decision times. And what you oftentimes see is that decision times in a small company are very short. They not only need advice from a large company, they need partnerships, they need clients. And decision times in a larger company can, I think, still be much longer. And that, I think, is still a bit of a hurdle to the concept. The proximity has been reached. The decision times, in my opinion, might still be a challenge, but I like to hear also the view of the large companies on that aspect.
André from Procter & Gamble, is it true that the smaller companies and the bigger companies often speak a different language? And is that a difficulty sometimes?
Indeed, they're speaking a different language, or they spoke a different language, because both in an ecosystem learn from each other. And that's the first step. You need to learn from each other the language you use, how you work, the speed at which you work. And after a while, you learn to appreciate each other. And you need to appreciate each other for the aspects which are relevant. Like speed is a relevant one. And why are large companies slow? Versus smaller company who are more agile and fast, you can synergize on one hand, but on the other hand, it's typically related to risk. It takes longer because the risk is higher.
And so when he learns that, he say, well, actually we can be faster together if we mitigate some of the risks. So it's all about being close and working together in different industries, and you learn from each other, and then you can do 1 and 1 is 3. And that's what we're trying to do, and we have quite a few examples on how to do that. And actually we learned a lot from the university world, but as you say, the incubator started in the 80s. Flanders and Belgium have great examples. The Leuven ecosystem is world standard. The Ghent ecosystem is top notch, also world standard. So they're really examples. And so we, as corporates, we learn from that. And now we want to join that overall ecosystem to be stronger together.
Any comments on that from Workero, maybe?
Yeah, well, I see it more from real estate point of view, because that's where we started. And for me, future of real estate is connected, right? And now I see a lot of office spaces, they are connected, and in these spaces needs to happen things. And in these things need to be innovation and co-creation. So that's why we bring a lot of, in our concept, by creating co-working spaces, we create the environment where startups can better work with the corporates, such as Procter & Gamble.
Okay. Here's a question for you also from Pedro Patin. Is internal process improvement or efficiency optimization also innovation in your mind? I thought innovation is mainly linked to new product development or business strategies. André?
You want me to answer that? Of course, it's also innovation. If you, and I don't know what you exactly mean by optimization, but in my view, optimization is, for instance, if you can improve or add an AI layer on improving the work, how people make products in a production plant. For us, that is wonderful innovation, because you make the work better from people who do the work, and you improve efficiency. Absolutely, and that is needed. If you want to be competitive and stay competitive on large businesses, whether making cars or making detergents, you have to constantly do that, because if you don't do it, others will do it, and then you lose competitiveness. But at the same time, we also need to look for other opportunities of disruption. Businesses which are coming in a different area, providing services to the same consumers, but not with a product. And the example I'm always giving is when you go to, so we sell detergents like Dash. If you go to New York, Manhattan, you go in a skyscraper and you visit an apartment, a millennial, and you come with your bottle of detergent, and they say, oh, "What's this? I don't have a washing machine anymore." Right? So the job to be done is to wash your clothes, but in cities, and cities are growing more than 50% of the world's population, if that evolves and people don't have washing machines, we're sitting there in 30 years without detergents. So that means we need to find other ways to do the same job. But you can't do that in the same organization, so you have to do it in a different way. But we have to be prepared for that. So that means we need to innovate in the space. And we need to work with startups to do that, because startups will do these new models on addressing the same needs for these consumers. So we have to do both at the same time, but in a different slide of organization.
Another question, then, that's clearly one for Workero, from Katrijn Stalens. Due to COVID-19, do you see any growth in flex office spaces?
Yes, absolutely. I'm 15 years in the business, worked in a lot of countries and managed a lot of flexible office spaces. So the market grew already in the last 5 years in an annual growth rate of 15%, 15 to 18%. It's a market that will be about 250 billion in probably 5 to 6 years. And right now, the results of the COVID-19 is that, well, a lot of people working from home. But at the same time, due to the pandemic, we all learned how to work from home. So why would we go to the office? So the office in the future will be the office the place where you will be doing interactive things, creative things. And all of the rest you will be doing at home. So again, all companies right now are looking at flexible space. So a lot of companies will leave their 5,000 square meter building and looking at going into a hub and spoke model where you have like one small headquarter and you have people working closer to home, because working from home is not always good. I mean, 72%, according to Hayes' report of 2 weeks ago, say they don't want to work from home.
Not all the time.
Right. Not all the time, 1 or 2 days per week. So yes, the growth in flexible office space will be huge in the coming 5 years.
Okay. To conclude, maybe one more question for Professor Peter Osseel. Due to COVID-19, we see an acceleration in innovation. Do you think that after the pandemic, we will see a backlash and innovation will slow down again, or is this going to last, this pace of innovation that we see now?
Well, I think intelligent people, and there are a lot of intelligent people in the world, build on what they learn. And the COVID-19 crisis has learned us an enormous amount of things. So I think that a lot of things will continue, that innovation, new ways of working will definitely continue. Other things I would hope are going to stop, like lockdowns is not a good idea. But once we open up again, I think we will have learned quite a bit and we will still use a lot of things.
Let's hope that. Thank you very much. And with P&G, Grocery and Workero, we have come to the last pitch of this Innovation Summit, and this will also more or less conclude this summit. We hope you found more than enough inspiration with these 6 great examples. I would like to thank all the speakers for their presentations and for their time. I would like to thank indeed the 3 experts for their valuable input. Thank you very much. And of course, I would like to thank you at home or at work for joining us today and for your questions. And now for the official closing of this conference, I would like to give the floor to Leonid Goes from VOCA West-Vlaanderen.
Thank you for attending this event. We hope that you truly enjoyed the inspirational pitches. After the event, you all will receive an evaluation form. May we kindly ask you to complete the evaluation form as complete as possible. In the future, we plan to organize this kind of events on a periodic basis. Your opinion will allow us to further improve and provide you even more unforgivable content. Thank you and goodbye.